Hi, everybody, and welcome to the very first New Earth podcast. I'm delighted to have with me today my guest, Gregg Chapman. Welcome, Gregg.
Hi, Sarah. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, and really nice to have you on the show. Today, Gregg's going to be talking about the didgeridoo and the new Songlines. But before we get into talking about that, can you just tell us a little bit, Gregg, about your story and how you came to be playing the didgeridoo?
Long story. Okay. The shortened version. Right. Okay. So I came into the didgeridoo around 2006. And I was married at the time, and so I decided to take my lovely British wife to introduce them to my family in Australia. And so we went down to Oz and showed her around, and in Australia we like everything big. So we have the giant orange, the pineapple, the banana, the giant Ned Kelly, the giant rocking horse. What else we got? We've got loads of other things. We love to like huge big things. So I went up to the giant rocking horse, which is in the Adelaide Hills in South Australia, and they had these didgeridoos in there that they'd brought down from up the north of the country. And so I just had a look around, and before I knew it, I picked one up and I took it to the till and I paid for it. so,
Wow.
so that was it.
So did it call you? Did the didgeridoo call you? Is it like like crystals? You're not meant to choose the crystal chooses you. Was it that kind of experience with your did?
I think I think it probably was. It was like, yeah, I like that one. And I just took it, and then it was mine, and then I had to figure out how to play it. And I hooked up with this chap who'd spent a lot of time up in the north of the country, and he's part Aboriginal himself. And so he gave me some lessons, and I started just to teach myself after that. Yeah, that's where the love. Well, it was a love. It was a love-hate relationship, because it was really bringing up all the anger, trying to get trying to get the thing to work. It's not normal.
Right. And had you been musical prior to that, or was that a very new kind of venture for you that really called you?
Yeah, very musical. When I was young, my mum said to me, "There's two things that you're going to do, son." She said, "One is that you're going to learn how to type. Two, you're going to learn how to play the piano." And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to type. Type it. Girls type. I don't want to type. And why do I want to play the piano for? I don't do that anyway." So we got given this piano, this old honky tonk thing with keys that didn't work on it and everything else. And I actually started to like it. And so that was that. And then I started doing typing lessons as well. And thank God for that, because I can now touch type, but it's probably also helped me with the piano as well.
The two went together.
So the two things went together. So for that, I am so grateful for my mother. She said, not bothered about anything else, but said, these two things I want you to do. And so for that, I thank my mother. And and still, I'm very musical today. I play lots of different instruments, but the didgeridoo has been the thing that's really picked me up. I've really taken a shining to it. And what I like about it is it's 100% about feeling. There's no structure to it at all. Piano has a structure. You can't. There are good notes and bum notes, and so things have to work in the right order with piano. Whereas with didge, yeah, it either sounds good or it doesn't sound good. You're either playing it right or wrong. But after that, it's just purely about feeling. And so I play other things as well. I play the harmonium. I love the harmonium. It's from India. It's what they use for doing mantras with. So I usually play that in the morning, and I do different mantras and things, and that's about the expression of voice and connecting to these ancient mantras, and flutes and drums and all sorts of stuff I play as well.
Beautiful, amazing. I just want to touch on a couple of things that you've kind of brought in already. The first was, when you were talking about learning the piano and how it was all about structure, and then with the didgeridoo, it's all about feeling. And I remember my own experience, because I, before becoming a therapist, my background was as an artist. And I remember that I very much had to learn, how to paint and draw. I had to do life drawing, learn about anatomy, learn all the technical stuff. But then, to become a good artist, I had to unlearn it all. I had to really kind of get into the feeling, so I can really resonate, firstly with that journey. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch upon was, what you said about how, when you first started playing the didgeridoo, because you were frustrated because you kind of didn't know how to do it, and the breathing is a very complex kind of thing to learn. It's not sort of natural breathing, from what I can understand, the circular breathing. It was bringing up a lot of anger, and I just wanted to talk with you about that, and also, the power of the didgeridoo, because some of it was perhaps the frustration, because you didn't have the technical skills at that point, but part of it was perhaps the vibration of, what was coming out, those noises, what was moving through you. And how it has, the didgeridoo has the power to then move that in other people, not just when you're learning it. I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about that, Gregg.
Well, first of all, it was purely for me, and so the didge really helped me to transmute that anger, because I was a very angry young man. I had a lot of anger that was pent up. And so the didge really helped with all that. And I really didn't go into it to certainly be playing it for other people. That wasn't really my intention. It was just something that I really fancied learning how to do. I'm from Australia. I was fascinated by their culture, by their spirituality, and I knew that there's a lot of spirituality behind it and behind the didgeridoo, so I was really interested in that. And so that sort of started my journey for me. And then it was really in about 2009, about 2 years later or so, about then, I was just starting to get good at it. It took me about 2 years to learn how to play the thing. And I thought, well, I'll take it to a backyard barbecue. And I started playing around there, around the ladder fire going. And I had a friend who'd been in a car accident. She said to me, Gregg, would you do me a favour and play the didgeridoo? Would you play it on her back and neck? Because she'd been in a car accident and was in, a lot of pain. And so I thought, well, okay, that sounds really interesting. Let's give it a go. Anyway, I didn't play for very long, about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. And then about a week later, she rings me up. She says, Gregg, I don't know what you've done, but the pain's gone. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So that was really my first experience of healing something physical, and really got me intrigued. So I started going on that journey then into the healing aspect. And then it was a little bit further on that I'd noticed that as I was getting better at it, I could sit and play for a long period of time. And I used to play with my wife and I. We were in the UK, and so we had this old 1700s built cottage, and it had a stairwell in it, and it was all like very narrow. And I used to love sitting in the top of the stairwell. I'd play the didge, and all the could like just feel everything like vibrate in this little old cottage. It's amazing it stood up. Built before Australia was founded. Well, by the white fellas anyway. And so then I thought, well, I'd start going into an altered state with the didge. I start going into a trance with it. So I thought, well, this is interesting. It's having this effect on me. Yeah, it's helping me emotionally, spiritually, physically. It's helping me to learn how to breathe. It's putting me into an alternative state. I thought, well, I'll get some mates round and we'll book a hall. So we booked Wellborn Village Hall, which is where we lived in Lincolnshire. So I booked this hall. I rang a few mates and said, look, just come round. I don't know what this is going to do, but let's just give it a try. And so I had about 30 people turn up for that first session and they loved it. so I was like, when's the next one, Greg? So, oh, was that good? Yeah, I loved it because I'd never experienced it before. I've never had didgeridoo healing myself done on me because I can't find anybody who can do it. And so they all loved it. It sort of went from there. I got into like special needs schools, autism. I got into working with people with profound and multiple disabilities, head injuries, severe accidents. I got into talking to the universities, academia, prisons, you know, mental health units, retreats, yoga students, all sorts of stuff I got into. So that was really my journey of how I discovered it for me first, and then it went from there into helping other people transmute stuff, emotions and traumas and things.
Amazing, Greg, and I can really relate to what you're saying because in a way I had a similar journey because when I was in my 20s I had two sort of very significant losses. I lost both my baby and my fiance very suddenly and very traumatically, and I felt such deep grief that I was really withdrawing from life, and I started to look for things that would help me. And, you know, it was a bit of a journey. You know, I tried a lot of things. And what I found was that, you know, things would help me a bit, but they wouldn't really reach like deeply inside to the places that I needed to reach in that point, you know, with the grief being stuck in my body. And there was someone, I was living in New Zealand at the time, and there was someone that was advertising a sound healing weekend. And I went along, and it moved me so deeply. This funnily enough, it was an Australian guy called Chris James that was running this sound healing, and it worked. It moved me so deeply. I ended up doing a 21-day teacher training, and during that time, it was in Australia near Byron Bay. And the guy, I think, had a lot of connection with Aboriginal, a lot of you know, a lot of connection with the land, native knowledge. And he was really encouraging us. We were toning, so we were really bringing the vibration. We were making ourselves the instrument and really bringing the vibration through our whole being. You know, with the toning, making the vowel sounds A-E-I-O-U, and we also did some healing of other people. And what we would do is we would scan the person that we were healing their body and go to an area. And it was very interesting when we started working with the sound. It was my experience was almost making a sound tunnel, you know, and it would go into an area and you'd feel the resonance in that area. And where there was kind of diseased tissue or, you know, a problem in that area, there'd be like dissonance and the vibration would change, you know, as you scanned that locality, and you'd almost make a sound tunnel that went into that. And it would almost like blast it out. That was my experience. It would change the vibration. And I just wondered if you might just talk a little bit about that, if you work in a similar way to what I've just explained my experience was, and you know what your experience is with working with vibration in healing.
Yeah, wow. They're very similar, really. I experience when I'm playing the didge and I get to the spot where there's some dis-ease or whatever, or a blockage or something or other. It's almost like I've got to punch up the didge. It's like I've got a block, and it's like suddenly I can't breathe. And sometimes the didge just completely stops, and I need more to get through it. And so yeah, very similar experience to all that. And it's just well, I don't know, it's just flushing it through. It's just bringing it back into harmony with everything else, because everything needs to work in harmony with each other. So yeah, very similar experience to that. And then I forgot the second part of your question, which was it's
Yeah,
gone.
well, it was just about, my own personal experience of, clearing the grief within myself, whether it's been, making myself the instrument, whether, obviously that's working with other people, you're having that healing, but, what the experience is within yourself, has it helped you on your own personal healing journey?
Yeah, sure. Well, my similar to yourself, I have also experienced grief 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago. My wife of 12 years passed away. And so it left me completely lost for quite a period of time. And, the last 3 years have been clearing out all sorts of different niggling health problems. And I'm gradually working through them. And so the ditch for me has been so incredibly important for me to transmute and shift all of that energy, because what I recognized when I was going through some grief, that I could feel it in my body. There was a feeling, there was a buzz there was a heaviness, there was a knot there, or something or other. And so I knew from I was trained in neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis and energy psychology, Reiki master, all sorts of things. So I knew that by doing energy work with the didge, through playing the didge and just allowing all that to go out through the didge, that I could transmute it. And what I noticed is that the next day, or within hours of doing that, just sitting and playing and feeling the feeling and playing the didge, is that I could change my state. And then the interesting thing was that nearly every time that I had one of these sessions, the next day something new would come in, a new possibility, a new something or other, a new positive something. And I sort of thought, well, that's really interesting. What's it doing? So if I'm changing and adjusting my energy, my frequency, my feeling, then, that surely is acting as a magnet to bring in new things that resonate that new frequency of vibration. It's very much what the likes of Joe Dispenza talks about. So I started to just really work with that over those last 3 years, and just getting the place to somewhere that was more level, that I could cope with. And I still have moments of grief. We never really fully move on from it. We just move forward with it. It's part of the makeup as to who I am. And grief. We all experience grief at some point in life, and we are here to experience that. So it's something that we shouldn't really shy away from. We really need to learn how to talk about it, how to transmute feelings, energy, such that we're not stuck in it, because it's the being stuck in it that creates all the illness and all the disease. So that's really been my journey for myself, and I'm totally grateful for it, because now I can appreciate that with other people who are going through trauma, and the world how it is at the moment, there is a lot of that about. So
I think that's
uh,
the thing. I think that it is. Thank you so much for sharing your own personal journey, because it's just so invaluable for people, at the moment, because so many people are going through a grieving process because there's been so much letting go, because we've had so much change in our world. We've all needed to let go of expectations around what we feel the world look like, and adjust to the new, and that's a grieving process. So, and a lot of people are needing support with that, and I know that you do work supporting people with grief, and as do I. And it's something, this podcast is called New Earth Podcast because what it's about is supporting people, through, whatever that might be, that they're experiencing. In this case, we're talking about grief, supporting people through that grief, so that they can start to really find the gift, like you talked about, how grateful you are for your experience. And certainly that's my it's my journey as well, as it's made me who I am, that having had those experiences, like you never really understand it unless you've been through it, kind of idea.
yes.
I feel so grateful, and it's really, these New World podcasts, what I'm really hoping is that it will generate hope in people, that they'll start to see, that actually this could be a very positive thing. The fact we're having so much change in our world, it can really start to orientate us into new ways of being. And Gregg, you're very much a leader in that kind of new way. One of the things that I wanted to talk with you about as well, in terms of like being a leader in the new earth, was and utilizing the didgeridoo and the energy of the didgeridoo, is, we've talked about already this idea of raising our vibration, shifting our vibration with the sound, becoming the instrument, healing trauma. And the didgeridoo has the profound ability to do that because it reaches the base, where we hold a lot of our trauma. A lot of our survival trauma is held in those base chakras, and a lot of there's not much that reaches that, whereas the didgeridoo comes in, it kind of really gets there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk with you about that, and there's a couple of things actually that I'd like to speak with you around this about. One is the power of intention, which you spoke about a little bit earlier, because I've actually got a beautiful story of the teacher training that I did with Chris James in Australia. And he told this story about a guy who had come on one of his workshops, and Chris had always said, it doesn't matter the sound that comes out you. It's not about, what it sounds like. It's about letting it move through you. Yeah. And anyway, this guy, he made this sound over someone's body, over their heart chakra. And it was really, from a musical point of view, it was very out of key. It was kind of, that went up sometimes. And the person afterwards sat up and said that was the most profound thing I've ever experienced, because this guy, he couldn't actually sing or tone, but he had a huge heart. He had this beautiful heart energy, and he came from real intention. And that was what came through, not the sound. The sound was kind of irrelevant in a way, because the sound, all it did was carry that beautiful heart vibration to the other person really powerfully. So it didn't really matter what it sounded like. So that was the first part. And then the second part I wanted to touch on was the power of the sound vibration to heal the land, because what is happening at the moment, as we're raising our vibration, we're also raising the earth. Mother Earth is also raising her vibration. The Schumann resonance is shifting, as we move through the photon belt. The veils are thinning, and we're getting bombarded by all these high vibration energies. And I feel that the didgeridoo has a huge power to clear the land, to open up the ley lines, so that we can all begin connecting, and that the sound is actually bringing us together. So I just wondered if you could just talk about those two things a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So first thing, intention is really, really important. It really is about intention, is sound healing. And certainly with the didgeridoo, I work a lot with people with that. And that's how I work with it for myself. My intention is, right, I'm going to sit, I'm going to clear this out for myself, and come back to something that's more level, more grounded, more connected. So that's something that I work with a lot with people. It's helping people to understand, well, what is showing up for you in your life at the moment. Well, what does that feel like? What does that look like? There'll be a buzz in the body. We're looking for the sensation. And so when you get, because most people are completely disconnected from it, they don't know how they're feeling. They can talk about it, but they can't really get in touch with what it actually feels like. There's not much of a connection there. So getting people to make that connection can be really difficult. But once they're there, they go, oh, I've got this pit in my stomach, or I've got this electricity running through me, or I've got this feeling in here. It feels like this big black mass or something or other. Most people struggle with that. So that's something is to get people into, is to starting to unpack. In neurolinguistic programming, we call them the modalities, or what's the structure of it? What's it look like, feel like? What's it sound like? And so that's the first thing. And then it's like, well, what is it that you want instead? What are you aiming for? What are you wanting to achieve? Who are you? Where are you going? All those sorts of things. And what does that feel like? And there's a difference there. So helping people to understand that there is a difference in the energy, the frequency of what it is that they want, and the energy of what it is that they're moving away from. Then you then apply sounds to that, and this is where the change can occur. And people can have really profound experience with it. I did a session yesterday, and this guy was shaking profusely, and he was releasing all the tension in the body. If we look at the animal kingdom, if a deer or something or other is running away from a lion or a tiger, just before it's about to get caught, it suddenly drops dead, pretends that it's dead, but it's storing up all this energy so it can escape, and then it needs to release the stress, so they will naturally shake and they will let all the tension out. And this is something that human beings have somewhat forgotten how to do. It's a natural, like shock, for example, it's a natural response. So shaking is a natural response during these sessions, and it can be really, really, really profound for people. I have so many people just say that was just so extraordinary, how they would just feel as though energy was shifting through them. The old, what was troubling them is not really there anymore. So it's like, that's really powerful. I think that we underestimate the power of healing sound, because there's healing sound and then there's sound that isn't really beneficial for us. Whereas the didge is from the earth. It's a tree trunk. It's the most ancient woodwind instrument in the world. We don't really know how old it is. We can carbon date it to around 2,000 years, but we don't really know. It could be 40,000 years. Could be, we have no idea. So it's a very spiritual instrument. And so there's a lot of story behind that. It's not just a tree trunk. It's got a lot of meaning, and this is why they paint the didgeridoo. It's to make a connection with dreamtime stories, to what they call songlines. So didgeridoo, what's it doing? It's showing us our truth as to what we are here to do. And it is also, so it's working on a micro level, but then it's also working on a macro level. So it is on a macro, it is on a micro. So what we're seeing in the world is also what we are going through individually. We're going through a huge, huge change. So we heal one, we heal the other, because everything is connected. My grief is your grief, is everybody else's grief. We are all going through a huge transitional change, and as we shift it for ourselves, we shift it for the collective. So most of the time, the things that we're feeling, they're not actually our own. Part of it is, but part of it may not be, because we're picking up on everything else that is going on around us. So when we heal ourselves, we are also healing the collective. So that's a little bit about intention. The second bit about how we heal the planet. And so the Aboriginal people of Australia, the original custodians, they talk about what they refer to as songlines. And these songlines are how they travel would be that they would travel through sound. They sing to everything. So when they're walking the earth, they're tuning in to what is the frequency of the area that they're walking on, because every area has its own sound, its own frequency. So they'd be tuning into that, and this is how they find their way. They find their way through sound. They sing to water to find water. They sing to food to find food. Kangaroos, for example. And so they're very, very much connected. You know, they just know how. They just know how to connect. And because of this, they carry a huge amount of wisdom that, unfortunately, the West, us Westerners, have forgotten about. But we are gradually waking up to it. You know, so these songlines travel along the magnetic electric grid system that exists in the earth, on the earth, and above the earth. So we can travel at any time by tuning into these songlines, into these frequencies. And so every living thing has its own frequency, its own sound, its own songline, and so do we, so do you. And so I like to think of these individual songlines as to, well, what is your passion? You know, what is your thing that makes you sing, makes your soul sing? You know, your thing. My thing is playing didge and music. For other people, it's something different. So for me, that's what I love about the didge, is that it shows people their truth. It shows us what is collective truth for what is going on globally, you know, on a grand scale. And I think that's really, really beautiful. Songlines. So didges, they all have their own frequency, their own art, their own feeling to them. And so I'm tuning into a different energy, a different frequency, a different story, a different feeling for each didge that I play. And so for me, that is part of the journey. You know, some didgeridoos, they feel more joyful when you play them. They like to be played hard, fast, loud. Whereas other didgeridoos that are much lower in tone generally like to be played softer, quieter, and these tend to bring up the stuck, stagnant emotions that we bury. So there's quite a range of feeling associated with different didgeridoos that I play. So it's a bit like a journey. Have I answered your question, or
yeah, no, amazing, Greg. Thank you. There's so much I want to touch upon. I'm going to sort of talk a little bit, and what I'd like to start moving into is the more spiritual aspects of what you've spoken about. You know, you spoke about that idea of resonance, and you know how, you know, by healing ourselves, you know, and taking responsibility for what's coming up for us at this time, you know, we really, you know, that's the work really for each of us to take responsibility so that we can start to clear, you know, energy of the greater good, you know, for the greater good, as it were. You know, and also this idea of this journey from carbon in our cellular structure to crystalline, you know, we're becoming crystalline as we're raising our vibration, and how that connects into the Earth's energy grid, which is also upgrading, you know, so that we're making these pathways within ourselves through the connection to the divine, and then through the Earth's grids, and how, you know, with the didgeridoo and the power to heal trauma, because the earth holds its own traumas, you know, through wars and through, you know, the toxicity of the cultures that we've lived in and the damage we've done to Mother Earth, you know, that have caused blockages in the energy field of Mother Earth, and that by taking responsibility for ourselves and then enabling that healing through Mother Earth, you know, we're starting to then be able to connect more powerfully with each other through these grid lines, and how, you know, that makes such powerful, you know, possibility for transformation and healing. You know, and how beautiful this time is, you know, that is what Creating New Earth is about, you know, how we're then being called to those people that are resonant with us. So it's a sense of kind of finding our tribe, and also places that are resonant with us, finding our place on this earth. And then what you spoke about, you know, finding your passion, finding your, you know, what the vibration is that you wish to bring through, you know, at this time on earth, you know, what is your songline, as it were. So what I wanted to sort of touch upon next was, you know, the spirituality of the Aboriginal people. And how, you know, you're working with this very ancient instrument, you know, that's comes from the earth, that's made of wood, that has this whole energy field of its own. You've mentioned that each one, you know, has different vibrations that relate to different things, but, you know, they hold this kind of sacred energy. And I just wanted to talk about, you know, a little bit about, you know, your understanding of what's happening there with the relationship with the Aboriginal culture, the Aboriginal elders, and also, you know, as you're playing this instrument, you know, are you acting like a guardian to all this knowledge, you know, like a keeper that's bringing this through, that's bringing through kind of wisdom with the sound? I just wondered if you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure, okay. Well, for me as a white guy, you know, I only know what is my interpretation of things. So, you know, I'm not Aboriginal, not this time round anyway. So I don't have a huge amount of knowledge. However, what I have is you know, an understanding. And for me, it is really important to hold that acknowledgement that as a white fella that I'm playing their instruments, and it wouldn't be right for me to start to be teaching about Aboriginal spirituality, because it'd be a bit like, you know, if I were to start teaching about, you know, Islam, you know, for example. I'm not I'm not from there, so you know, I think that is important. That, you know, for me, it's holding that level of appreciation, that level of respect, but then at the same time, not be teaching things that me as a white guy that I'm not really authorized is for the right. That's not quite the right word. Um, to do so, and I would never ever say that I teach Aboriginal spirituality. I have a bit of an understanding. I have a lot of appreciation of. I want to learn more, but for me to start to be teaching that just wouldn't quite. That just wouldn't feel right for me. But I do know some things. You know, I do know some things about the new Songlines. I knew some things about the stories, about the dreaming stories, and you know how they travel with sound. I know some. I know some, you know, bits of information, but that's about all that I've got into this time round as a white fella.
Thank you so much for your humility, Greg. And I just think that that's so important. And I think that's part of the journey, you know, that we're all on as we step into New Earth. It's really, you know, like, you know, us all taking our place and our own unique vibration, but doing that with humility, you know, that
Yes.
we're all equals, but at the same time with respect for elders, you know, that obviously holds huge wisdom. You know, thank you for sort of like really, you know, being a role model for that. And, you know, talking about the dreaming and everything, actually, that was, we're going to start drawing it to a close in a minute, but that was actually something I really wanted to touch upon, because the astrologer, Pam Gregory, this really incredible astrologer, I happened to hear, and I didn't know this before I organised for you to talk today, that on the full moon of the 7th and 8th of December, so that's this evening, for some people, you know, then more in the morning for, you know, depending on where it falls. It's a full moon in Gemini, and it's all about going on a spiritual pilgrimage. And she actually mentions the Aboriginal dreaming and dreaming in your future self, this idea of who you wish to be, dreaming in your future vision for planet Earth, you know, what you wish for planet Earth. So I just thought it was absolutely incredible that we'd actually, without knowing, you know, because I didn't understand the astrology, could just intuitively kind of, for the very first New Earth program, put it on this day. And I'd really like you to talk a little bit about, you know, how people can connect with their own song lines. And I also wondered whether we could set an intention, you know, of, you know, around what we want to dream in for the future collective of New Earth, the future vision, you know, almost like, and then I'd like to invite you to, you know, play the didgeridoo with this intention, you know, with this idea of, you know, let's bring this through for the collective on this very powerful full moon, you know, in Gemini, because what Pam said about this full moon in Gemini is that Gemini is about choices. So we have the choice, you know, we can stick in the sphere, you know, around what's going on, you know, with all these difficulties, and we can put our energies into that, or we can really dream in our future vision for humanity and for ourselves. So I'm hoping that we're going to really support that process with the full moon this evening. So yeah, that's I wonder if you could set some intentions around that as well, Greg.
Sure. Well, for me, in intention, our song lines really is about what are you passionate about? What do you what gives you joy? What fills you with so much love, joy, feeling of connection? Because it is that. That is your frequency. So for me, it is doing this, you know, playing didge, playing my harmonium, sharing that with other people gives me a huge amount of joy. And when I'm doing that, I feel as though I'm becoming something that is much bigger than me, you know. And when you feel that joy for the thing that you do, what you're doing is that frequency, you're sending that out to the world, and you're affecting other people around you. So for me, that really is what songlines are. It's like, who are you and what are you here to do? What is your purity? What is your love? What are you passionate about? And follow that. And then that connects you up to source. That connects you up to your truth. You know, what I do know is that, you know, in tribe, which essentially we are still tribal, each person in a tribe has a function within the tribe. And there is nothing too weird or wacky. You know, we all have a role to play. And so that is what I think is important for people to think about. Doesn't have to be like massively like an important role, like, you know, you deem it to be important. It's whatever it is that gives you joy, gives you hope, gives you love. You know, it can be really small things. It doesn't have to be anything like massive, grandiose scale. So for me, that is, you know, stepping into the new earth is who are you and what do you want to be, and gradually step into that. Now is the time to really feel what that feels like, and start doing it. And then you can change your life, you change your frequency, change your life, and you have change for everybody around you.
Absolutely. And just really encouraging people to really follow their own intuition about what they're being guided to at this time. You know, what gives them joy, what gives them passion, like you say. And do you have any intentions for, you know, the collective, you know, with the sounds? Because I'm going to invite you to do a little didgeridoo.
Yeah.
And if we can set the intention, you know, for this full moon, for the collective that we can bring through with this sound, it would be incredibly powerful. Do you have anything that you feel would be resonant?
Usually what I do is for me, I feel as though I am becoming the sound, and I work very much in spirals and sound waves. And for me, when I play the didgeridoo, I become that. And one of my didges that I usually play features By Me the Rainbow Serpent, which is one of the it's one of the old dreaming creation stories, and it's a manifesting energy. And so on this ditch we have the rainbow serpent. It's an akura, a giant dragon, and in Australia it's rainbow coloured. And so it was By Me that created all structures on the earth, mountains, rivers, valleys, oceans, simply by his tracks that he made across the earth. He would make land formations, and so eventually made water and all the animals on the earth. And so it's a manifesting energy. So often when I'm playing this, I am calling upon that energy that we are creating a new earth, a new way of doing things. We all need to step into this manifesting energy to bring forth that. So for me, the Didge it's a space creator. It's setting the stage for other people to step into that. What is it that we want to manifest and bring forth? And certainly when you call upon By Me, who's you know, a massive dragon, you know, and dragons still exist, you know, they're really powerful, you know. And what a beautiful visualization, you know.
Yay.
And a meditation to focus on this giant dragon weaving its way across the earth, where it can connect to anybody, anywhere, and in any time and any dimension, and to set its own pathway for something new. So
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, so that's just, you know, that's just one ditch. They all have something different, but that's yeah, big time creation energy.
So perhaps we can just set the intention for everyone to just really, you know, align with themselves, connect in with this co-creating, manifesting energy with the best intention for Mother Earth and the collective at this time to manifest a positive future for us all, and see what comes through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. So honoured. Wow, that's amazing, Gregg. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Such powerful stuff. Well, we're going to close off this evening, Gregg. Is there any last comments that you'd like to make before we finish this evening? I am going to be putting your website underneath this video. And I'm going to also put my own website under this video. So, and please do subscribe if you've enjoyed this, and do share, because this is the very first podcast. Thank you for your patience, Gregg, you know, with me figuring out the question, dumping two questions on you at one go and stuff like that. Thank you so much for your patience, and yeah, let's spread the word about this amazing work Gregg's doing, and yeah, let me know if you have any last comments.
Oh, just thank you very much for having me. I hope that your viewers really enjoyed that as much as I did. It's lovely to connect with you and just follow your own passions, you know, tune into that, be that person, that version of the self that you really want to be in the world, you know, start to step into that more, you know, and just share that with the world. So, you know, that's really it, you know.
Absolutely. And what an incredible message to finish this podcast with. Thank you so much, Gregg. It's just been an absolute pleasure and delight talking to you. I'm very, very fortunate because I arrived in central Portugal, this area of central Portugal, just over a year ago. And about 6 months ago, this Gregg Chapman showed up in my village, so we're very fortunate to be able to connect. Greg's become very much part of my tribe, so I feel very, very fortunate. So many blessings, and many blessings to you all. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hope to connect in again with you next time. Bye for now.